if you've ever seen me streaming on Twitch, then you may have seen a channel point reward called Random Question. Here's how it looks in action.
Random question time. ADJStreams asks, who do you know that has been married the longest? How many years?
Good question. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set that up. What do we need first? Let's have a look. So I'm going to be showing you how to do this in OBS. Other platforms may work, but in my example, I'm going to be using OBS. We're also going to need the OBS webhooks plugin, and we're also going to need MixItUp, which is the bot that I use. You can use other bots like the Orange board, but I don't know the instructions for setting them up there. That's something that I may do in a later video, but for this example, we're going to use MixItUp. The links for all of these things are in the description of this video. If you have trouble setting up, then you can always drop me a comment in the comments below, or you can join my Discord and drop me a message there, and I'll see what I can do to help you out and get you up and running. The link for the Discord is also in the description. So let's go ahead and set this up. What we're going to need first of all is a text file, and in that text file we're going to need to have all of the questions that you intend to have available to pick from. So as you can see here, I've got a very long list. One question per line is definitely important here. One question per line. You could also use this as a maybe challenges, a list of random challenges, or you could maybe theme the questions where they're all about a particular subject, like films, for example. Now, in my example, all of my questions are just random. There's a lot there. There's actually 3,000 questions, plus a bonus one, which is a bit stupid. But that's my list of questions. And the important thing here is you need to know, one, how many questions you have. So that's how many lines. In my example, as I said, I now have 3,001. So that number's important, and I'll explain why later. Make a note of that in the meantime. The other thing is obviously, where is this text file being saved? Now in my case, you can see up here the S drive, ADJStreams 3000hues.txt. So again, important to know where this text file is going to live and how many questions, more importantly, how many questions are in this video, in this list. Step 2. What we need next is a text file. Again, a second text file. This time this text file is going to contain kind of a placeholder, the text that you want to appear on screen. So if I go over to here, you'll see the one that I've set up. This is my last question, txt. And if you see there, random question number 488, ADJStreams asks, if your goal is world domination, what is your first step? You kind of want to get this is what's going to be shown on screen. So you kind of want to get this done in the right kind of format, the right wording and so on, because you want to see how it looks on screen. In the next step, we'll go into OBS and we'll lay this out, and we want to make sure that it looks nice. So what you're going to do is create a text file. Again, you can call it what you want, but make a note of where you're saving the file to. In my case, ADJStreams, last question, txt. So once I've done that, we're going to head over to OBS. And if I head over to here, you will see what I'm doing. So this is my OBS. This is my streaming OBS. Got a double version of me on screen at the moment. But that's how it is. So in this example, what we're going to do now is head over to the well, any screen really, any screen where you're likely to have the text. Now, here's a bit of a trick. The text that you're going to appear on screen is probably going to show up on more than one screen, more than one scene in OBS, not just one scene when you're playing a game. It may be on a chat screen and so on. What I tend to do is I tend to nest my scenes, and what you'll see here is that I have a scene called reactions. Now, it's completely empty, or so it appears to be, but actually this contains a list of sources, lots of different sources for lots of different reasons, alerts, you name it, they're all included on here. And then what that means is any scene that I want to include all my alerts on, I just pull in this nested scene. So for example, if I pop over to, as an example, my my no game chat screen, and you'll see on this screen popping up very shortly, there we go, scene reactions. There's my scene reactions, the nested scene. And that means that when I have my question pop up in the scene reactions, it will also appear on this scene because it's included. So heading back over to the scene that I've called scene reactions, there it is. And you'll see here that I've created a text source. And the text source, again, can be any name you want it to be, but you need to make a note of the name. So in my case, I've called it a question. And you'll see why this is important soon. You'll also need to make a note of the scene that you've put this in as well. So in my case, my scene is called scene-reactions. Again, make a note of the scene and the source name. Now, what I've got here is this text is the text. In fact, this is different text to what you saw earlier. And the reason that is because I've actually pointed this out a text file called lastq.txt, which is actually the one that I tend to use. But if I switch it out and switch it over to the one that I've just created as a test, you will see that same text. Random question 488, ADJStreams asks, if your goal is world domination, what is your first step? Now, you can lay this out however you want. What I've got there is just, basic stuff. Read from file. That needs to be ticked in order to get this option to appear. And that's largely it. That's really all you're doing. And wrapping, perhaps. You probably want the wrapping enabled because if it's a long question, you want it to wrap. You don't want it to disappear off the screen. And as you'll see here, if I click on this visibility button, you now see the question reappearing on my screen. And if I switch that back to a scene where like this is open, you will now see the question appears. Hurrah. So we know that that part's working. That's it for OBS really. That's all we need to do for OBS. But now we need to pop over to MixItUp, which is the bot. And in MixItUp, what we're going to need to do is configure some channel points and then configure some actions around that as well. So I'm going to just pop this back to, actually I'm going to leave this, on the screen. No, I'm going to switch this over to my reaction scene again because I'm going to show you something different very soon. Right, so as you can see, I'll save that. It's not visible anymore. So what we're going to need to do now is we're going to head over into MixItUp. In MixItUp, I love MixItUp. It's so cool. It's got loads of features, but one of the features that you can do here is add channel points. Now, when you add a new channel point reward down here by clicking this, whatever you type in this box here will automatically create the channel points in your Twitch dashboard. Never used to do that. That's something that they've added in a more recent version. But anyway, we would create the name of our channel point here. And what it will do is it will not only create, as I said, the channel point inside Twitch ready for you to configure, it will also create your channel point here. Now, if I open this up, this is my existing one. First thing you need to do is go down to here, click the action conditional and click add. Now, this is what it's going to look like when it's empty, when you've just created a brand new one. This is the one that I've already created previously, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. But this is what you're looking for. You're looking for the conditional, and we're going to fill these details in very shortly. But that is what you're going to be clicking on first of all. I'm going to delete this one because now I'm going to show you the one that I've created earlier. As you can see, in this one, I've filled out some of these details. The first value I'm setting is all args. Now, all args is a special identifier. That's literally what they're called in MixItUp. Special identifiers, and they contain values. It's like a token. Whenever all args is used in certain places in MixItUp, it will have a value that is represented by that particular name. And every time you use all args, it will replace that value with the value that it represents. Certain special identifiers are custom ones that you can create yourself. Others are special identifiers that are actually like predefined ones that you can't use unless you're using them for the specific reason, the specific thing that you're expecting to show. So in my case here, all args represents the value that the user has typed in after they triggered the channel point reward. So in this case, my channel point reward is set up so that they enter a number between 1 and 3000. The number that they type in is then added to that all args value. So you can see now this kind of makes a bit more sense. First value, all args, it needs to be between 1 and 3001, the minimum value and the maximum value. Now remember earlier when I said that you need to make a note of how many questions or challenges you have in your text file? This is why, because you need to set the maximum value to be whatever you've got. So for me it's 3001 because I have 3001 questions in that text file. So that's the first step. This now means that these actions that I've listed here will only work if this condition has been met. So we're looking at this and we're saying if the value that the user has entered is between 1 and 3000, then we'll proceed on to the next step. Otherwise, we'll just completely ignore what they typed in. So then you're going to go into action and you're going to select file, read and write. You can see there, that's the first one that I've created. You'll click that and you get an empty file, read and write. Now I'm going to delete this again because this is empty, and I'm going to show you the one that I've already made. So I'll delete that, bang, and then show you the one that I actually made. So in this case, read specific line from file. That's the action that you're looking for. So having selected file, read and write as your original action, you then get this option here, and there's a number of different options like save to file, append to file, read from file. They all have various uses, and there's some really cool stuff that you can combine this with to make cool stuff happen. But in my example, what I'm doing here is I'm basically going read the specific line from file. Now which line is it going to read from? Well, it's the line number that the user entered. Remember how earlier on we said that the first value that is entered is all args, the value that the user has entered. That is the line that we're going to look up in the text file. So if the user types in 500, then this action here is going to read line 500 from that text file. But what's it going to do with that once it's done that? And there's the actual text file that we were talking about, 3000question.txt. So having read that line out from the text file, what does it do with it? Well, we're going to specify a special identifier. This time this is our own custom one. And we're going to call it the question. Again, you can call it whatever you want, but make a note of what you're calling it. I'm calling mine the question, because in the next step, we then go again to up here, action, and we select our streaming software option, click plus, and you will get this panel. Streaming software, OBS, slobs. Depends on what you've got set up, but as I said before, I'm using OBS, so I'll demonstrate this with OBS. So in OBS, having selected the streaming software, I get a list of actions, and my action that I'm selecting is a text source, because remember we set up in OBS a text source called the question. A question, a question, a question. Next, you're going to specify the scene name that the source is in. In my case, as I said earlier, scene-reactions. Remember, this is case sensitive, so you have to make sure that if in OBS it says scene-reactions, that's what you need to put in here as well. Similarly, the source name is a question. Remember, if I pop back into here, you can see over on the left-hand side, I'm in scene-reactions, a question is my name of my source. So that's what we do. We set that up and we're going to make it toggle visible on. So that makes sure that that is enabled there. The text is the text that we actually want to appear on screen. So here we've got random question, the hash sign for basically saying number, the shorthand for number. Then we've got this. This is important. The $all args. Again, remember that we used $all args before. What did it mean? It meant the value that the user entered. So if they entered 500, then this is going to be replaced by the number 500. Then it takes the username. Now, again, this is one of those predefined special identifiers that I talked about. The username here is the name of the person who triggered the event. So if it's you triggering the event, it's going to replace that with your name. If it's one of your friends, one of your viewers, it will replace this with their name. So the full thing will say random question number for 500. ADJStreams asks line break. Remember, line break again is one of those predefined special identifiers What that does there is in the text source, it will just bump down to the next line before carrying on with the rest of the text. And then you have the question. Remember what in the previous step, I wrote the value that was read from that text file into this, and now we are using that value as part of the text source. Finally, you need to specify the file path. Remember this, so this is the text file that we set up earlier, which is the text file that you want to appear inside, that we set up inside OBS. So here we have last Q. Now, as a final touch, you don't have to do this, but you can actually set up text to speech as well to read out the question. And that's exactly what I've done here. So in my example here, I've got it reading out whatever was read from the question. So it will say random question time, ADJStreams asks, and whatever the question was that was asked. So that is essentially the setup that is needed inside MixItUp. It's pretty straightforward, really. It's one conditional that just checks that the user has entered a certain number, and then it reads from the text file whichever line they've asked for, writes it into that text file so that OBS can pick it up, and then reads out using text to speech. That is it. Now we need to go back into the Twitch dashboard and open up the channel point reward that we set up, and we're going to go in there and we're going to configure. There we go. So on this screen, this is the part of the creator dashboard for Twitch. Under viewer rewards, you have this option called channel points, manage rewards and challenges, and if I scroll down a little way, I will see the option random question. So you can see here I've got mine already set up with 1,000 points. When you first create yours, this will have like one channel point redemption. But you go in here and you start editing it. Remember, this has to match what was in MixItUp, but now MixItUp handles all of that for you. Don't touch the reward name once you set it up. If you do want to change this, remember you'll need to go back into MixItUp and just modify the one that we set up already. If we go back into here, remember to just come back into here, click edit, and you'll have to reselect the reward name here from this, because what will happen otherwise is the reward name here, the reward in MixItUp will be lost and it will just be unassigned and won't be picked up. So you have to go back in and reselect it from that drop down. So I'm not going to change my reward name. I'm happy with that. Then you're going to enter a description. Enter a number between 1 and 3001 and below a question shall materialize. So that's my description. You don't have to have that. You can put whatever you want in there. Remember to set a cost for how much it's going to cost for each redemption. You can set your cooldowns as usual down here if you want. And to make sure that they actually enter a number, you have to tick this box, require viewer to enter text. So that's really the setup that's needed here. And again, you can pick your reward icons and all the sort of things you would normally do inside Twitch when you're creating this. So having saved that, what that now means is when I go into my Twitch chat and somebody, if I go back to here and I go back to this screen, and if I'm on this screen and somebody types in, as they would do before, random question number 266, bang, there we go. So having done that, the next step is, you may have noticed it's still there and it's not going away, is it? We can fix that. We can actually fix that. We don't want it to just be sat on the screen like that. I'll show you one way you can do it, and then I'll show you the way that I have it set up in my particular setup. So what you can do is go back into the original setup here for this event, and having read and written to the text source and read out the message, what you might want to do is just set up like a wait command on it. Actually, not there. Let's set it up in here. Wait, add, maybe wait for 60 seconds. And then we're going to add another command that says the streaming software add. In fact, let's do it even quicker. Let's just duplicate the original one that we had up there, because then we've already got the source scene name and the source name added. And all we're going to do is just tick that off. That's it. Just going to hide the original. So now what will happen if I save this is in future, whenever the message appears on screen, it will wait 60 seconds and then hide the text again. And that works. So, you know, that's probably a good way of doing it. What I've found is I would prefer to control when the text disappears off screen. So I haven't actually done it this way. What I'm using is additional piece of software called Touch Portal. Now again, you don't need to be using Touch Portal. You may have a Stream Deck. You may have something else that controls the things on screen via buttons, hardware buttons, or however you want to do it. But I'm using Touch Portal. Now, if I show you my Touch Portal is basically a piece of software that again is really cool. Touch Portal allows you to, let's bring that over. So Touch Portal is a piece of software that runs on your machine, and what it does is it allows you to run an app on your tablet or your phone, which will display buttons that you've set up and even multiple screens as well. And it kind of acts like a way of doing Stream Decks. If you've heard of Stream Decks, it gives you the ability to do something similar, but on an Android tablet or an iOS device. So I've got a tablet that's set up with various screens, and one of my screens is this. This is kind of one of my main screens that I tend to use while I'm streaming. And one of the buttons that I've set up is called Hide Question. And all this is doing is when I press it, for the scene reactions, the source, a question, these are just drop downs. The great thing about Touch Portal is it knows the names of all your scenes and all your sources, and it will just list them for you. So you can just go in here and say, right, for this scene and this source, hide. That's it. It's just all drop down buttons. It's really cool, you know. Again, I'm going to do videos on this at some point, but it literally is a case of just like dragging things over and then selecting what you want in there to configure. And what happens once you've configured it in here, it then appears on this screen, but more importantly, it appears on your tablet. So if I've got a tablet like this one, I can then just hit the button on my tablet and it will trigger this same thing, which means I then am able to kind of have a nice long discussion perhaps about the question that has been asked before I'm ready to actually, and in fact I'll show you how this works, because Touch Portal is so cool. You can basically do it like this inside, like that. There we go, and it's gone. So that was a brief example of what Touch Portal can do. But before I go, there is one more thing that I'm going to show you here. In my example, I was doing it so that the user has to enter a number between 1 and whatever in order for them to pick the question. But if you didn't want that to happen, if you literally just wanted it to pick a question at random from your text file, then it's even easier. So if we head back into MixItUp and go back into our channel point reward that we've set up, you could literally delete the entire conditional there. Because what you really want is just this: read random line from file. And again, we're going to specify our path to my 3000 questions, and I'm going to call it, remember, whatever you call it, whatever you want, but in my case, I'm going to call it the question, and we create that. And then the next step is going into streaming software, and we add that, and the rest of it is the same. So you go into here, you're going to create the text source, you're pointing it at scene, reactions, a question is what I'd called it. We want to make that visible, and we're going to make that random question. Remember, whatever it was that I said last time. Random question, username asks, and then line break, and then the question. And I forgot to put the number in here. Actually, no, it isn't. There's no number. That's it. And then remember, you specify the path to the file that you need OBS to pick up. That's it. That does the same job as we had before, except that now the user doesn't have to enter any number. So remember, in Twitch dashboard, in your channel point setup, you wouldn't need to have that enabled where they have to type in a number. Just leave that empty. And as soon as they select their channel point reward, up pops a question. That's it. That's really all there is to it. Well, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope that that was easy enough to set up. If you're having trouble with this, then don't forget you can drop me messages in the comments or join the Discord and leave me a message there, and I will try and help you either with the setup of these things or this particular task. And that's it. I'm hoping that you'll catch me again in the next video, and I'll see you again soon. The hell?